Welcome to Take Mark Pod, where we innovate, discuss, and discover the dynamic intersection of technology and marketing. In each episode, we explore how businesses can leverage both to drive growth and innovation. Meet Alvin, our esteemed host for Take Mark Pod. With over 15 years of experience as a renowned marketer, project manager, and software as a service architect, join us as we uncover the unique value proposition of integrating technology and marketing strategies, helping you stay ahead in this fast-paced digital world.
Hi everyone, welcome to TechMark Pod. Today it's quite an interesting episode. I'm going to be talking about something that I'm passionate about, but I never really talk about creativity. Right? I'm a marketer, I'm a tech person, but I love creativity, and maybe I should then ask Balekane maybe to review my logo and tell me how bad it is. Since you're a creative director. So this is my logo, Balekane. I'm just going to give you something to do before you even introduce yourself. What do you think of this logo?
Simple, clear, and memorable. Maybe not as friendly for social media, but simple.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And welcome to TechPark Pod. You can introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, my name is Balekane Mokoditoa, and I'm currently the creative director at an advertising agency called FCB Africa, which is based in Johannesburg.
Oh, great. I think that was a very short introduction. As much as I know you now, it didn't give justice to who you are, but we'll get into the details as we go along. But I think we need to start from the beginning. I've heard people calling themselves creative directors and all that stuff, and I never understood what the term creative director mean, or how do you become a creative director? Was this a calling for you to become a creative director? When you were young, were you like a painter, an artist, or were you made to become a creative director, or you were born like that?
I think it's something you work your way up to. The hierarchies in this system. You start off as an intern, and then you become a junior copywriter. So I've got a copywriting background, junior, and then midweight, and then senior, and then depend on your journey. You can be a creative group head, which is the transition between senior creative and creative director. And then if you are lucky and if you are very, very, very good, then you just make the leap from a senior writer to creative director. And that's where you really given the biggest responsibility, where now you feel like the adult in the room, where the client looks at you and says, why is this campaign failing? Why am I not seeing sales? And so you really work your way to the top, and you earn your stripes through consistently really doing great work and making sure that you make sure that you answer the brief, you pushing boundaries. And that's really how you work yourself to it. Obviously, when you start out young, there's guidance from all the other seniors. And I think what happened is with me is you take a little bit from the people that were leading you, the things that you learn, and you really learn about what defines the golden idea, what defines something that's really a strong execution. And then more than the creativity, you also learn about the business of the industry. You learn about what is it that clients looking for. It's more than just the idea. It's really about how is that client in that space to do that type of ideas, because you've got different brands. Everybody loves the chicken brand that does all these political stuff. Not all clients can do them. Sometimes some clients are in the financial sector and they're a bit more conservative and they can't be that edgy and risky. But you also need to think about how can you push them forward? How can you, in their own space where it's a financial sector, how do you make their work interesting? How do you push it forward? So that's really how you get to that level.
Yeah.
And
so while it's on that point, I want us then to touch the anatomy of a creative director. I think you have touched on it a little bit, but let's go full blown. What does it mean and what does it take to become a creative director?
So you really need to give direction to your team. on how to push the work. So you have to be somebody who has experience in the field in terms of what is trending, what is that people are talking about, where is it populated, what are most people doing, so that you can move away from that and do something that's fresh and that's original in the thinking. So it's really about guiding your teams, because you work with teams, you work with designers, you work with copywriters, you work with art directors, and then you work with your account leadership team, and you work with strategy. So everything starts from strategy, and you take the strategy platform that they give you. And from there, you work with your team to come up with a big idea. And through the process of reviews, you take that big idea, you nurture it, you give them guidance. Like, you make sure that the ideas that they're coming through are breakthrough enough and can stand out. Because everybody is served with advertising every day. You open YouTube, you open your phone, you go to Instagram, there's always ads. Now the question is, how do you guide your team to do ads that really are worth looking at and clicking at, so that when that idea pops on your feed, you don't just go on YouTube and you press the skip button. You go, this is interesting. I just want to hang on a bit. And then it's part of a bigger scheme where it's really about building a brand. And I think the creative direction is where you give the guidance. You go, what would my client do? What would they not do? What should they be doing that they're scared to do? Because some, like I said, some brands, they might want to play it safe, but you can push them just a little bit to a space where it's a little bit fresh, it's a little bit original, but it still plays in the space of the brand. So how do you really help that brand move forward in your own way in order to build brand love and get people to love it, and also to generate sales and increase their revenue?
Wow, that's such quite a big job. I think we have implemented such a position within our small agency, but the way you explained it, it looks like something that is really, really, really big. And looking at the level at which South African advertising industry is, you then tend to appreciate what creative directors are doing in South Africa. And recently, I understand you were a judge at the Loeries. Loeries is how many years now? More than 30 years, right?
Yes, yes, it's about 40. I think this was the 47th Loeries
47th.
Award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite a prestigious award ceremony. And would you say it's like a career highlight for you to become a judge at the Loeries?
Yeah, you definitely. I think, you grow up looking to do all this amazing work. Like I said, you do work that really needs to stand out. Number one, in terms of creativity. Number two, in terms
Mm,
of selling the
mm.
products that the client wants to sell, because advertising at the end of the day is about selling the product. And what it does is you grow up doing these work and entering the Loeries and having people on the other side looking at your work against the other work that's entered and going, is this the benchmark for creativity? Is this what we want to be putting out there as an industry to say this is the best work? So with that history and having to wonder what goes on in those rooms and the process of judging, it really was quite highlight for me to now be invited to be part of those conversations, to now be in that room where you're looking at the work, you going, oh, this is what it takes to really be at the top of the crop. This is the work that moves the industry forward. And just listening to the different opinions and fights and battles and debates
Mm.
amongst the peers as well about why this work stands out and why this work should win and why other people think this work shouldn't win. And it's really being part to now, I always love the backstory behind all things that happen. And so
Yeah.
it was nice part and being a character in this backstory that was happening of the judging, looking at the work, deciding what's gonna win what, and really looking at the different criteria, whether was it ticking this criteria and ticking this criteria? Yes, but did it tick this criteria? No. And just being part of those conversations.
And is there any work that was outstanding for you?
One thing for sure about the Loeries, you like
Yeah.
it or not, you will always leave unhappy. You will always leave envious. You will always
Yeah.
leave inspired. if you leave the Loeries without having those three emotions, you are at the wrong party. You are at the wrong awards festival. You will always
Yeah.
go, I did that win. Because you question yourself, like all award shows, you're going to question yourself, why did that win? I didn't think it was that great. But that's
Yeah.
according to your personal taste. And then there'll just be some work where this idea is so simple. You just go, I wish I'd done that. I just wish I'd done that. And then there's work that's just so amazing and groundbreaking. You go, how the hell were they thinking of that? How did they get there? And most importantly, how did they convince the client to buy into that idea and make that idea happen?
Wow. I'm not so sure, but I saw. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask about this, but I think I saw one ad, a Vaseline
Mm,
ad. I think it was
mm,
trending on LinkedIn or something of that nature,
yes.
and I think it was there the Loeries as well. Did they win?
No, it was not at the Loeries. So there's
Yeah.
a submission date for entering the work. And I
Okay.
think that work, that piece of work was done after for Heritage Day, which was after the deadline
Oh.
for the Loeries. But I
Okay.
think you're right. It was trending for a reason because
Mm,
when people resonate with an ad, they share
mm,
it. And that's how it gets trending. And that's just the beautiful thing about our industry. The
mm.
consumers will give you feedback. If it trends, it means they like it. But there's also different type of awards. A friend of mine posted and says, "Don't worry if you're not at the Loeries, you're still doing great work, and
Yeah.
awards are overrated." And he just spoke about that. And I think there was a certain truth to that. There's work that wins creative awards. There's work
Mm,
that wins effectiveness awards because it's sold so much. It may not be creative, the most creative piece of work, but it wins effectiveness awards. And then there's work that will never be as creative, win creative awards or win effectiveness awards, but it will
mm.
win the minds and hearts of South Africans. That's the work that people will love and will talk about. And I think don't want to judge. One thing we know, we'll decide, the people will decide whether it wins awards, creative awards or not. But one thing for
Mm.
sure about that ad is that it has won the minds and hearts of South Africans and even globally, because there were people from the States who were resonating with it and going, I
Oh,
can
wow.
so relate to this. And my granny putting Vaseline on it. So you do that kind of work where people just look at it and they go, wow, that's it, and they share it.
So before you became a judge at Loeries, have you won any awards yourself?
Yeah. We always do this thing of being humble about awards, and we say, "Oh, I'm so humbled to win," and I'm so honored. That the
Yeah.
truth is, like, it's amazing to win. And you wanna win every year, or you wanna win most years that you're entering, because that's how you really push yourself, and that's how you know that you are staying top of the game, and most importantly, that's how you move up in the career, and you make sure that you can negotiate a better ching ching when it's time
Yeah,
for that appraisal.
definitely. So for 20 plus years, you have been working in this space. Is there any work that you would say this possibly was a major highlight in your creative?
There's a couple of pieces that I think I enjoyed. The first one, it's always your first Loerie. The first Loerie always means the world to you.
Yeah.
But for me, my first Loerie was a little bit of a weird one because on the night, I didn't realize that we'd won. And there used to be this book that got published where all the past winners were named and the work was put in. And on the night, for one reason or the other, I didn't realize I'd won. So I left the venue disappointed. And then about a year later, I was looking at a production house, sitting at a production house, going through the book. And then there, my name popped up. It was one of those where the penny dropped a year later, literally.
Wow.
And that was almost like a little, oh my, I've done it. And then there was a piece of work that we did, I think in 2012. This one was special. It was for Peugeot cars. And
Yeah.
we got a global brief. We got a brief globally where they wanted to launch the car. It was the 206. So they
Yeah.
asked us to, it was a brief to all the agencies around the world and say, come with the best idea for this. And the brief came from the French office in the And we had this crazy idea about this decision, a movie where you can make choices and where you can decide how the story ends. And it was a man naked running down the street. It was a 7-minute film. And for some crazy reason, the clients loved it. And then that's when you start having that belief in yourself, because you're like, out of all the creatives in the world and the people in Europe and people in Brazil, and which were like some of the hot houses, hot creative shops, they decided to go with your idea. And then, so that was really quite good and very, very exciting. So we did that piece and ended up obviously being rewarded. There was a nice digital piece and it got a couple of awards, which was nice, a couple of silvers and different award shows. That was great. And then another one that we did was really for South African blood donation, where the idea was simple. It was really this thought of, when you donate blood, you can save 3 lives, which is a fact that few people don't know. So we had to communicate that. We had this idea of, so when you donate blood, obviously you sit down on a chair, you take your arm, and then they put the injection and everything. And we had this idea where it was about, what if we created a chair where as you sit, there's this liquid that's red to symbolize blood. As you sit on it, it comes out of the chair and it goes through a pipe. And we created these 3 little plastic figurines that look like people. So it would flow out of your chair and fill up these 3 plastic figurines. So literally by sitting down on this chair and sitting hard and squeezing, you were now pushing this liquid under the chair, and it would travel all the way and fill up these 3 people. And that was a way of just communicating that when you donate blood, you can save up to 3 lives.
That's quite interesting. I'm amazed by the work that that creative directors do. So one thing that inspired me when I was growing up as a marketer, I mean, I grew up in Zimbabwe, right? And I could see on ETV and, when I watch TV every time, I was impressed by these adverts that were happening in South Africa, which is probably maybe part of your work, if I don't know, so sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's thing that inspired me a lot in marketing, that I wanted to be, in a marketing field and in a marketing office with people with such creative, ideas, basically. So in your years of working in this industry, what do you think has changed over the years?
Before you go, I thought you were going to say you were inspired by Generations and Achimoroka.
No, I remember Generations, Archie Moroga. I mean, we watched all that stuff, That was goodness.
Yeah, I think what has changed, it's really the timelines that we used to have. I read somewhere and I was thinking back that when we started, we used to have all this time to really come up with the work. You'd get 2 weeks to come up with all this work. And now, and over time, things just got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. But budgets are smaller and smaller, but you're still required to make the same amazing output. And we sometimes just look at our clients and we go, and we say unmentionables and we go, okay.
What must happen?
What must happen in this time? And then we have this thing of you can give us time, and you can give us a lot of time, or if you're not gonna have money, give us time in order to get the best ideas. If you're not gonna give us money and time, and yet you want the best ideas, it's not gonna work. So we always try and have that conversation. But the timings have gotten shorter. There's a lot of technology, or obviously, that is interrupting the process. But really, that's the change. Things have just gotten quicker. And depending on your luck, your bad luck or your good luck, you can have really great clients that are supportive of you, or clients that are maybe a bit cautious. They're not as passionate about their brands. They just want to tick the box and get things over and done. Or you can have clients that are really challenging you to do the best work that both of you can do for the brand. And I think for me, that's really the key thing, the relationship that you have with the client, because despite all those obstacles, if you have a great relationship with the client, then you sit and you say, cool, these are the 4 projects that we have for the year. We know we're not going to have time for 1, 2, 3, but for this one, can we really give it our best? Can we make sure that if we don't have the best money for it, can you give us the time so that we make it the
At
best that you
least.
can be? And then you negotiate and have that process where you say, what's the big win for the year? Where are we going to knock it out the park and say, we tried something different, and whether it wins or loses, you tried something different and you tried to just do something amazing. And if you have that support with your client, then everything else kind of like it's there, but it's not as critical.
Wow. So a typical department, you lead a team, right? In the creative department. A typical department, can you list out how many people and their roles? It's leading to another question.
Yeah, so you work with people who are in your department. So you've got people who you work with that are not in your department, like strategy. They really come with they look into the gap. So what are the other brands saying, and what's the open space for your brand to say something different? And they come with the creative platform. And then from there, you come as the creative director. You work with a copywriter, designer, an art director, and sometimes a social media person. 9 times out of 10. And you just get together depending on the ask. And what you do is you just go based on the strategic platform. What's the big idea that you come up with? So you look at what's the big idea that you come up with for the brand. And then based on what the big idea is, then you go, can this work for TV or hero content? Can this work in social media? How do we execute it? Does it work for video? Does it work for out of home? Based on the requirements of the brief, does it work for radio? Does it work as an activation? And you have reviews with each other. So they come up with ideas and then they show you, you review, you look at what ideas can work or not, you give feedback, and then they go back and they either refine the idea or they come back or they start from scratch and start thinking again until you review the work and you get to a place where there's a great idea. And then you take that and you obviously sense check it against strategy, that it works with strategy. And then you work with your account leadership. So some agencies call them client service. Some people call them account leadership, but they are the in between the main client and the creative agency. And you sense check it with them that, are you happy that this answers this brief? Or we think this answers the brief. Do you concur? What are your reservations if they have any? And then you take it from there. And if everything's happy, you then put it in front of the client who looks at it, and then the process starts again. They give you feedback. I like the idea. This one is a bit too risky. This one feels like it's not my brand. We are a bit more conservative. We are a bank. We don't do that. Or we are a bit risque. We think this is the right one for us. Make this little tweak, and then you come back, you make those tweaks, and after about a couple of rounds, you then have a final product. And then the fun starts because we're not done. Everything has now been done on paper. Now you then brief the production house that's going to help you bring the idea to life. So if it's a TV ad or hero content, you look for a director and you work with a production house to then shoot and find the cast and make sure that the idea that you have on paper translates to the same vision that you have in the screen. If it's a radio ad, then you find the right voice that you think will do justice in terms of the characters that you have in mind to tell the story. And then you go to that where you now execute it before bringing it to life and sending it out there wrapped with love. And you put it out there and you hope people notice it. Number one, you hope people talk about it, and you hope that really makes a dent in the revenue and makes and increases the sales of the clients. But it also depends on what the requirement of the job was. Sometimes clients will brief you a job to, how do we get people to fall in love with me? So it's a brand love ad. Nowadays, a lot of brands don't do that. But back in the days, we used to have these sing-alongs with VW and those type of ads. Nowadays, it's about, I need people to buy. So usually the ad ends with, this is the price of the car. Get it for $799, and that's where we are.
So my second question, following after that, hypothetically, we give you access to pro versions of artificial intelligence. I mean, right now, almost every software has got AI, whether you're using Adobe, you're using anything that you're using. If we give you access to that, which department would you replace with AI? You don't have to answer that one, otherwise you're in trouble. But my question, of course, is around how AI is disrupted, and I mean, people have been on the edge thinking that they're going to lose their jobs. You know
Look,
how
you
that
you
has
you can
disrupted.
replace you can replace me. You can replace anybody. You can replace any department with AI. But that depends whether you want average work or whether you want amazing work. So, for example, if we say we're gonna replace account leadership or client service, and now the person and now the client has to talk to this AI bot before giving all the answers. The problem is you are never gonna get to a point where the client can always talk to the bot, but the bot is not going to ask the human questions. It's never going to ask,
Yeah.
what do you mean? When you say you want this change, do you mean it must be like this or do you mean it must be like that? So you are always going to need the human interaction, you know, because so many things can be lost in nuances. That's why we say sometimes don't send an email, rather pick up the phone and talk to the person, because a lot of things and a lot of nuances can be lost if you send things via a bot. I think to answer you, AI, there's a whole hula baloo. And I think when it
Yeah.
first started, everybody was like, wow, ChatGPT and all these other things, they're gonna take people's jobs. But I've played with it, and trust me, it's never gonna write the copy that it's gonna write copy that's basic, but it's never gonna give you that insight, you know. Right now there's this thing where we people who are talking about 6-7. There's this trend that I don't know where it came from. AI doesn't know that. It's always gonna say, well, maybe do this A, B, C, D. You know, it's never, you know, we were doing a little thing at work where people would talk about new phrases. And one of them
Yeah.
was mentee B. And I was like, what's that? It's like, well, it means mental breakdown. Like AI,
Okay.
it's never going to write post copy talking about mentee B.
Meant to
You know,
be.
oh, I'm
Yeah,
having such a
definitely.
mentee B. You know, it's not on trend. Maybe by next year or 2 years from now, it'll write that type of copy. But at the moment, but then that trend might be outdated. But right now, the people will say, let's do it. Let's write that copy and be trendy. And it's never going to replace us. For me, it's a tool that, remember, I spoke about how we've been asked to do everything faster and quicker. For me,
Yeah,
it's a tool
definitely.
that enables everything to happen faster and quicker. But I don't think it could ever replace humans.
Okay. That's quite interesting. I think you mentioned something offline when we were discussing about the Loeries, how there is now, a use of tech in the advertising
Yeah.
space a lot. Do you want to get into that now?
Yeah, it's really about some of the work that we saw. You know, it was really so amazing. I mean, one of the pieces, it was done by an agency in the Middle East. It was really looking into the human biases that come into boxing when there's two fighters, whether we like it or not. You know, that the judges are always gonna have their biases of, I think this one, he's the young up and start fighter, and he's probably gonna be the one to beat the current champion. And there'll be all sorts of biases creeping in. And what they did was they did this AI judge that uses stats and that uses different camera and footage to really judge and see how many punches landed that maybe the human eye of the judges couldn't pick up and see. And this AI would tell us in the case study that there was a jab here, there was a punch. The human eye might not have picked it up, but I did. And it tells about all the punches that were landed and all the blocks that happened. And at the end of the fight, it gave a scoring of how it saw the fights and who won. Now, this was different because some of it supported what the judges were thinking, some of it contradicted what the judges were thinking. And that just shows an example of how AI and analytics and data can be used to just do something unique for something like boxing, where you now
Wow.
have this judge that's giving the result, because it's never going to be biased to I think this person should win because they're the current, or they're my favorite, or or they've got a fighting style that reminds me of Muhammad Ali, or they've got a fighting style that reminds me of this person, or they've got a southpaw or a jab. And that was really one of my favorite pieces just because of that. And just even the way it was crafted, it was so beautiful. It just, and it just felt so perfect. And I think that's why it won quite a number of huge awards. I think it won
Wow.
Grand Prix and a couple of golds as well. So from a craft, from an idea, it was just well awarded. So it was an amazing piece. And then another one that was done locally was, it was so simple, but so beautiful. It was really about, we are now in the habit of watching football matches on our phones, which makes us
Yeah.
quite individualistic, and we now don't interact, and you miss that cheer of celebrating with people when a goal happens. So they created this venue where you all take your phones and you put them together on a screen to form a wall. And basically all those phones put together would project the match. And obviously it was a whole lot of tech involved, but it was just showing the cool things that can be done with technology. And now this match was just projected on all the people's phones. And I'm sure they've got ways to make sure that everybody got their phone back so that no one steals it. No
Definitely.
one steals the other phone
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But it was just a simple idea of why watch football together when you can just sit and watch it in a crowd. So those were some of the really amazing pieces
Interesting.
that showed
Yeah.
the
So
use of tech.
I think last year, by the end of last year, we had a lot of adverts that were AI driven. So there were AI adverts. Coca-Cola had one, the popular Coca-Cola truck with the lights and and the rain day. Has this actually taken off in the advertising industry? Has this have it been approved to say we are now doing ads using AI, or it was just futuristic in a way?
Nah, I think a lot of brands and agencies are now waking up to the possibility, and how do we really integrate AI into the everyday work. So at the moment we're working on a couple of projects that are actually involving AI, and because we're doing it in the early stages, we trialing it on some of the jobs where you can take that risk. And I think it's really about the appetite for the client. Like I said, if you've got a wonderful client like I do,
Yeah.
big ups to my shout out, young shout out to my client. Then
Yeah.
you work that journey together because you have a conversation of, we wanna take this step and we wanna do it together. There's gonna be a lot of learning. There's gonna be a few speed bumps, but if we use this opportunity to learn, then we will know where the mistakes are and what to look forward, and hopefully be ahead of the game more than other brands. I mean, I've even seen a car brand in South Africa that's just recently done an ad. So a lot of, but the car is a entry level car
Mm.
for young people and who are starting to work, and it's a great ad, and you can tell that it's AI, but the idea lends itself to this crazy, colorful, wonderful execution of the ad. So you must use AI in a way that fits the idea. Don't have
Mm.
a terrible idea. In South Africa, we like to say, don't have a poo-poo or a gaga idea and then try and make it better with AI. It must be a great idea still.
Yeah.
And then you talk about AI in order to bring it to life in a nice way. But AI also has its risks. Like, one of the things we're doing is it's moving at such a fast pace that during the Loeries, one of the pieces of work that we were judging, it was AI that was based on like what AI used to be early in the year. Now
Yeah.
AI moves at such a fast pace that when we were starting to judge the work, it just looked so outdated because by then AI has moved so forward, and AI in terms of visuals and how you can create ads, it has become so advanced that you really need to be quite careful in how you use it, because what's key now and what's cool now, 6 months down the line might look crap. So you have to be quite smart and how you craft it, how you bring it to life, so that your stuff doesn't look outdated. Like the campaign that involved the fourth judge, the AI judge, it's so brilliantly crafted. I can't tell, it didn't rely on as much on the look of AI, that a year from now, it'll still look
Mm.
absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that AI has disrupted. And following to that question, do you think as an agency, you need to have an AI department that's dedicated to people that understand AI? Because if you look at it, we do have the team that is there, but sometimes the
Hmm.
team can be rigid in a way. And then there are
Yeah.
people that are fresh and they understand AI and they know how to work in an agency. Do you think it's a good idea?
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea. In fact, most agencies and most production houses have already made that pivot. Did I use the word
Mm.
pivot in a meeting? Yeah, have already
Yeah.
made that switch. Where, like I said, the piece that we're working on now, it really involves using AI because what happens is, think about it. Now, when you go on Google and you ask it something, the first result that shows up before all the
It's,
other things, it's now the AI response.
yeah.
And when you go to stock library pictures, you have the option to go to AI because the stock pictures people realize that you actually need to give people the real footage that exists and that's been shot, that's been part of your bank. And you also
Mm.
need to give them the option to create stuff based on what they want and what their heart's desires and what their imagination can conjure. Otherwise, why should they go to a different engine when it's almost like part of something that you as a business could be doing? So a lot of people are already disrupting themselves. A lot of companies and agencies are already disrupting themselves by having the AI part of their offering. And there's different ways in which you can do AI. Some agencies are even looking at, is it possible to craft briefs and make briefs a lot tighter just using
Mm.
AI. And it's really the AI that a lot of people are using, which is photography, images, production, and writing. That's really the surface level stuff. There's a whole lot of engineering where you can just code and engineer a whole lot of different things and different ways of working for agencies. So it's really going to be exciting because the process has
Yeah.
started. And when you have clients that are eager to say, let's do it, let's try it, and let's see what's working, what's not working, then you're in a very good space.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, am I allowed to ask you about an advert that I've seen? There's a campaign that I've seen driving around, and it just, you know, intrigued me.
Yeah.
Are you open to that? Oh, okay, cool. So I've noticed that the Chinese, they're coming with a lot of cars into the country, and they've got a lot of bakis to say. And then this popular baki that we always called a baki, now they've got a campaign that says it's not a baki. It's, I don't know if you've seen that campaign going around.
Yeah, I've seen it in dripped in bits and pieces. I've seen billboards. I've seen where it's a nice little kid who says, "It's not a bike, it's a," and then they say the name of the brand. I'm not gonna say it because I'm not. They're not paying us here. We
Yeah, they're
can't
not
be.
paying us.
Yeah, well, they're not paying us. We can't be doing free advertising for people here. They're not even giving us pakis. So yeah, what are your?
They are not a baki anymore. So they are not considered as a baki. So we'll go to the
Yeah.
other Chinese one that I saw. It looks like a baki.
Yeah. So what was your question regarding that?
So I was asking you, what do you think of this campaign? Because I saw it and I keep on asking myself a question to say, are they trying to differentiate themselves from
Mm.
Me Too products that are coming into the industry, or what's happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so maybe the campaign from the Chinese brand, I have not seen it. But what happens sometimes is brands try to really find a way of sometimes copying other. So if you are in the same space and you are in the same category of SUVs or bikies, you try and go, how do I knock the competitor out? The US
Mm.
is very good at doing, we know that the Coca-Cola and the Pepsis are very good at this competitive advertising overseas. In South Africa, it's not allowed. So you have to be really smart sometimes
Oh,
at how you maybe take jabs to say, yeah, well, you saying this, I'm gonna say that, and taking jabs at your opponent. Because like you're right, the Chinese are here and they're really making sure that they make sure they take out the competition.
what is the future of advertising in South Africa?
The future of advertising. I think clients are gonna continue asking us to do things faster
Mm.
for less budgets. I think that's where it's gonna be. But what's gonna be interesting really is how agencies evolve, because a lot of agencies used to bill on the time space, where we say we did this campaign for this amount of time. Now with the advent of AI, we can do the same thing faster. So how do you build that? How do you move away from the time-based model to go, it's about the value model? And how do you start charging for that? And also, a lot of agencies, a lot of clients are starting to go, I'm going to an agency. I want the big idea. Give me the big thinking. I'm going to take that idea and I'll have my in house people execute it
Oh yeah,
and bring
yeah.
it to life. And now what it does is it starts eating into the margins of advertising agencies. So it's about how do agencies respond to that in a way that still allows them to be financially viable, you know? And in terms of, I think, the creativity of South Africa, I think it's going to be quite interesting, because you have a lot of, you have this generation that's coming up, and it's different trends, and it's about how are we remaining competitive, how are we making sure that we still cool. And you know, from a creative and advertising point of view, South Africa has these highs and lows where we are amongst the best in the world without a doubt, you know.
Wow, yeah.
But we have these moments where we competing at Cannes and other international shows and we're kicking ass. And then you
Wow.
have these years where maybe we don't do as well as the previous years. And it's really about getting to that point again where we constantly and consistently making sure that we're kicking ass and making sure that we're still punching above our weight, because there's something in the water about South Africa. There's something that overseas people love. You know, you can see
Mm,
in like Tyler doing their music, you can see it in Trevor Noah just being a success. There's
mm.
just something that I think we having more trust in ourselves. We having more trust in our insights. We seeing ourselves as being capable. And I think we just need to lean in more and really just make sure that our work feels authentically South African and still has a global result.
Amazing. No, Balekane, I think if we are to go on with the conversation, we can go for 2 hours, you know. No, it's been an amazing conversation that I had with you. And I mean, we'll have more conversations as we go. But do you have any parting words?
Yo, that's the one that you didn't prepare me for. But I think it's really about, let's lean into AI. Let's lean into creativity. You know, humans will always be the best creators of work when it comes to creativity. So AI is just another tool. When machines first started, there's always this big hoo-ha where people are saying, are we going to lose our jobs? Are we going to lose our jobs? When machines actually do what people have done and they just help us make it faster and make it better. The belief is always about creativity will always come from people. It is always going to come from human. It's going to be driven by insight, but it's always going to be supported by technology. And AI is just one toolbox in this deck of things that are helping us do the work that we want. So keep trusting the human voice, keep trusting the
Yeah.
human insight, believing in what the human mind is capable of. And hey, let's keep doing amazing, amazing stuff.
Wow. No, thank you very much. Coming from you as one of the judges of the Loeries and over 20 years in the advertising space, I would say congratulations to you. Say you have done well for yourself, and I hope you continue to achieve your what you call it your what you call the hierarchy of needs, self
Mm-hmm.
actualization. Yeah, self-actualization, you know what I mean? And then if anybody want to contact you, they want to get in touch with you, I mean, there are people that are listening to you right now. Maybe they are inspired, or maybe they want to advise or anything. How do they get hold of you?
So they can use my email address. That's the one I'm very happy to give out. It's Balekane, which is my first name, dot Mokoditoa, my surname, at fcb.co.za. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Balekane Mokoditoa. I find that the LinkedIn spots are the LinkedIn connections are where you really see people's efforts and the need to really wanna contact you and talk to you and reach out, and you see the effort and the seriousness, and that's how we got in touch with each other.
That's, of course, that's how we got in touch. Yeah.
How we got in touch, we connected. So that's my favorite space, because that's where the intention starts, and you have the connection, you start the conversation, and you can see, oh, this person's really serious, and then you take it further. So that's my favorite place to really.
So thank you to everyone who has been watching TechMark Pod. We're nearing almost to the end of season 2. Then we'll take a break. Then we'll start again next year. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for commenting and sharing this episode with your friends and listening. I can't forget the people that listen to this episode every Monday at 10 o'clock. They've actually told me that they tune in every time at 10 o'clock in expectation of an episode, So thank you very much. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Alvin.
Thank you.